shaking is because I'm shaking. Huh?
All right, so the recording started. You can begin now.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I am Malika Warwood, and my colleague Shalana Mills is unable to join us tonight, but I will be playing a recording she created for you guys. We would be presenting Chapter 6, Courage and Moral Leadership from the Daft. What we'll cover in this chapter is ethical and unethical leadership, the ethical climate in business, moral leadership, the model of personal and moral development, the importance of stewardship and servant leadership, and finally, leadership courage. So, ethical versus unethical leadership. According to Western Governors University, ethical leadership can be defined as demonstrating and promoting normatively appropriate conduct through personal actions and interpersonal relations. The traits of an ethical leader are they possess humility, they are honest and straightforward, takes responsibility, strives for fairness, and encourages and develops others. Brown and Mitchell, in their 2010 business ethics article, defined unethical leadership as,
Malika,
huh?
could you click on present mode? The slides are a bit small for us to see.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, present.
All right, that's better. And the see little tab there in the bottom that says something. Just click on hide.
Okay, lovely.
All right, 1 second. Who's Firefly? All right, continue. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Um, they be they define unethical and leadership as behaviors conducted and decisions made by organizational leaders that are illegal and or violate moral standards, and those that impose structures that promote unethical conduct by followers. The traits of an unethical leader are they are arrogant and self-serving, they practice deception, breaches agreements, deals unfairly, and neglects followers' development. So here are two examples of an unethical and an ethical leader. This is obvious who the ethical and the unethical leader is. We have Mr. Barack Obama and the lovely Donald Trump. Anybody want to tell me who the ethical leader is?
Um, i- is it Mr. Obama?
Yes,
Donald Trump, of course.
of course, because he's such a lovely gentleman.
I know, right?
Okay, so moving on to the ethical climate in businesses. The ethical climate determines acceptable behavior and ways of dealing with fundamental issues in organizations, thus being a key factor in the organizational life. What's going on at the top of the organization trickles down through the organization and society. When leaders fail to set and live up to high ethical standards, the organization, employees, shareholders, and the general public suffers. When businesses practice unethical behavior, they'll have a hard time attracting both employees and customers. Because once you witness an organization practicing unethical behavior, would you want to work there? Or would you want to be a customer there? I don't think any of us would.
I wouldn't want to be any of those.
I agree, me too. Um, let's move on. Okay. What leaders do to make things go wrong? When leaders signal what matters through their behavior and when they operate with unethical behavior, many employees see these actions as okay. For example, in a company named Enron, the senior executives were openly arrogant and ambitious for personal success, and they blatantly flouted the rules and basic standards of fairness. A young Enron employee said it was easy to get into, well, everybody else doing it, so maybe it isn't so bad. And I'm sure, well, for me, I can speak for me, I said this multiple times. I don't know about anybody ever had to say this, but if everybody else could do it, I could do it too. Nobody? Just me?
No, they,
Yeah, I've
of
said
course.
that as well.
Right there with you.
Well, actually, I think we were all thinking about that sentence.
Well, I always say, even in my workplace, I say, well, if everybody could come in this, I could wear this too. But that's not a good thing.
That
Um,
depends on what exactly you're speaking about, because there is not always time that you would want to follow the madding crowd. So it depends on the context in which you're speaking. It doesn't mean that because everybody is doing it, you have to do it too. And that
that's
is when
true.
you get pioneers and entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I agree. Um, so we know everybody in this environment in that organization unethical because everybody doing what everybody doing. Okay, so they focus on having a huge salary, a big office, and other symbols of status rather than on what is good for the organization. When they are dishonest with employees, partners, customers, vendors, and shareholders, and they regularly fail to honor agreements or commitments. Also, when they treat people unfairly by giving special favors or privileges, favoritizing who they want to give the promotion to, who they want to give the best part to, that's they're being unethical, and that is how things go wrong in the business. Unethical leaders also tend to take all the credit for successes, but they blame the others when things go wrong. And lastly, when they fail to speak up against acts that they believe are wrong. For example, when colleagues are telling sexually offensive jokes and the leader holds his tongue for whatever the reason may be, they are essentially giving support to that type of behavior. So once they don't say anything, everybody is going to believe that they're just accepting what is happening and it's going to continue happening if you don't speak up on it. That is also going to make things go wrong in the business. So moral leadership. Acting like a moral leader. The single most important factor in ethical decision making in organizations is whether leaders show a commitment to ethics in their talk and especially in their behavior. Moral leadership is about distinguishing right from wrong and doing right. This doesn't mean ignoring profit and loss, stock price, production costs, etc. But it does require recognizing the importance of moral values, human meaning, quality, and higher purpose. Many leaders forget that business is about values and not just economic performance. American industrialist and business magnate Henry Ford made a statement on this. He said, for a long time, people believed that the only purpose of industry was to make profit, but they are wrong. Its purpose is to serve the general welfare. And I totally agree with this. Anybody else? No?
Yes, really. But most
So,
companies don't tend to think that way.
No.
But ideally, it should be for the greater good of all.
Yes, I agree.
Malika, I'm sorry, what was your question?
If anybody agreed with Henry's Ford comment.
Yeah, I would say I agree as well because um, if you just now, you can't, a business can't simply study profits and, the dollars and cents of it all, because
Mm-hmm.
they have other aspects of the business. And of course, one of the most important aspects of resources is human resource.
Yes,
So I definitely agree.
I agree too. Becoming a moral leader. Leadership is not merely a set of practices with no association with right or wrong. All leaders' practices can be used for good or evil, thus having moral dimension. Leaders choose whether to act from selfishness and greed to diminish others, or in ways that serve and motivate others to develop their full potential as employees and as human beings. So here we have two lovely persons. We have, and before I say who they are, anybody know who they are?
Hitler
One
and Stalin.
Yes, Hitler and Stalin. Anybody know what they refer to this combination as?
I ain't too sure now.
Diabolic duo.
Yes, they have another one as well.
I'm just guessing. I didn't know that was right.
Well, you were right, but they refer to them as the devil's alliances. It goes well with their characters, don't it?
I was
Yeah, it
trying to
does
Google
actually.
it, but I didn't.
I went too fast. I didn't give you enough time to Google.
Yeah, yeah.
That's I'm sorry. Okay, so personal and moral development. There are three levels to this development. The first being the pre-conventional level. These individuals are egocentric and concerned with receiving external rewards and avoiding punishments. They obey authority and follow rules to avoid any detrimental consequences. We have level 2, which is the conventional level. At this level, people learn to conform to the expectations of good behavior as defined by colleagues, family, friends, and society. These persons follow rules, norms, and values in the corporate culture. And last and third level is known as the post-conventional or principled level. People at this level may disobey rules or laws that violate the set of principles of right and wrong. A leader at this level is visionary, empowering, and committed to serving others. Which level do you all think you all are at? Anybody? First, second, or third?
Um, I wonder if I'll get myself in, well, not get myself in trouble, but I wonder how it's going to come across if I say that at times I could be a bit of all.
Okay, there's
Yeah,
no wrong answers.
yeah.
Anybody
And that's
else?
just me being brutally honest.
I would agree with that because again, human nature, we adapt and we evolve.
Mm-hmm.
So we may not necessarily stay at one level throughout our lives.
Yeah,
Correct. True.
I agree.
And then different circumstances as well produce different responses
Mm-hmm.
to those circumstances. So,
And me as well, I believe that I take part in all three levels. So we all have that in common. But according to the book, most adults operate at level 2. Some may not even have advanced from level 1. But the important thing is that leaders can use an understanding of these levels to enhance their own and even their followers' moral development. Okay, so let me now switch you over to my colleague. Minute.
don't forget to mute your mic. Okay, Malika?
Thank you.
We're not getting any audio.
You don't suppose it's because your mic is out?
Yeah, you're supposed to leave the mic on.
So then we'll have the echoing. Okay, hopefully not.
From servant leadership. Good night, everyone. My name is Shalana, and I will be continuing our presentation on courage and moral leadership from the Daft textbook. As my teammate Malika would have stopped at, I will be continuing from servant leadership. So, what is a leader's moral responsibility towards followers? Is it to limit and control them to meet the needs of the organization? Is it to pay them a fair wage? Or is it to enable them to grow and create and expand themselves as human beings? Well, in my opinion, I think that a leader's moral responsibility is definitely not to limit or control the employees in the organization, right? Much of the thinking about leadership today implies that moral leadership encourages change towards turning followers into leaders, thereby developing their potential rather than using a leadership position to control or limit people. The ultimate expression of this leadership approach is called servant leadership. And we would compare it as we move along to some other approaches. Changing leader focus from self to others. And there are 4 stages. So in the first stage, we have the authoritarian leader. And this leader is a control type of leader. At this stage, leaders set the strategy and goals as well as the methods and rewards for attaining them. Subordinates are given no voice in creating meaning and purpose for their work. This leadership mindset emphasizes tight top-down control and employee standardization. And we have 2 examples here, Adolf Hitler and Kim Jong-un, right? As you all would be familiar with those names. So basically, the authoritarian leader is the traditional understanding of that type of leadership is that leaders are good managers who direct and control their people. Followers, on the other hand, are obedient subordinates who follow the orders given to them, right? And as you all may know, Adolf Hitler, he was the dictator of Germany and the leader of the Nazi Party. So he had that control over those people, and basically they did whatever he told them to do, right? So he was the one giving all the orders. Same thing with Kim. And Kim being the leader of North Korea. Participative leader. This leader is based on participation. So at this stage, suggests that employees are expected to make suggestions for quality improvement, act as team players, and take great responsibility for their own jobs, but are not allowed to be true partners in the enterprise. So since the 1980s, many organizations have made efforts to actively involve employees. Leaders have increased employee participation through employee suggestion programs, groups, and quality circles, right? So this type of leadership is based solely on team players. And we have an example here, Jack Stoll, and he is the president of Coca-Cola. And in his time, he have learned that working with other people was the way to go. He knew the importance of delegation and oversight in order to complete a project. Under his leadership, he brought companies to higher profitability with his ability to work with the fineness of detail, and he also knew when it was time to step back and give somebody else a chance to voice their opinion or bring their ideas forward. Next, we have the stewardship leader, and this leader is based on empowering others, right? So followers are empowered to make decisions and they have control over how they do their own jobs. Leaders give followers the power to influence goals, structures, and systems, becoming leaders themselves. Stewardship supports the beliefs that leaders are deeply accountable to others as well as the organization. These type of leaders guide the organization without dominating, and they facilitate workers without controlling them, right? We have an example here, George Washington. George Washington was the first United States president, and he was a man of faith and action. He believed deeply in God's providence, and he demonstrated that with his actions, right? We have 4 principles that provide the framework of stewardship, and they are to reorient toward a partnership assumption. And this means that partnership can happen only when power and control shift away from former leaders to core workers. Localize decisions and power to those closest to the work and customer. Decision-making power and authority to act should reside right at the point where the work gets done. Recognize and reward the value of labor. The reward systems tie everyone's fortunes to the success of the organization. And lastly, expect core work teams to build the organization. Teamwork. So teams of workers who make up the core of the organization or division define goals, maintain controls, create a nurturing environment, and the marketplace they serve. Now we have the servant leadership, and this type of leader is based on serving others, right? So servant leaders represent leaders that give up control and make a choice to serve employees. Servant leadership was first described by Robert K. Greenleaf in his book called Servant Leadership. And who was Robert K. Greenleaf? Well, he was the founder of the modern servant leadership movement. He created the 4 basic precepts of the servant leadership model, and we'll have a look at that, right? An example of this servant leadership would be Dr. Martin Luther King. And Dr. Martin Luther King was an activist who became the most visible person and leader in the American civil rights movement. So, this type of leadership basically is an upside down type of leadership. Servant leaders, they transcend self-interest to serve the needs of others, to help others grow, and to develop and provide opportunity for others to gain materially and emotionally. So now we can look at the four basic precepts of the servant leadership model that Mr. Greenleaf, described in his book, or what he spoke about in his book. Put service before self-interest. What does that mean? This, to me, means that the desire to help others should take precedence over the desire to achieve a formal leadership position or to attain power and control over others. So you try to help others before you think about yourself. Secondly, listen first to affirm others. One of the servant leader's greatest gifts to others is listening, fully understanding the problems others may face and affirm his confidence in others. Inspire trust by being trustworthy. Servant leaders build trust by doing what they say they will do, being totally honest with others, give up that control and focus on others' well-being. Last, we have nourish others and help them become whole. Servant leaders should help others find the power of the human spirit and accept their responsibilities. This requires an openness and a willingness to share in pain and difficulties of others. So when you do that, you make yourself vulnerable. And it's not always a bad thing. Some instances it's okay to make yourself vulnerable to others, to show, that concern and that way, to make others feel comfortable and share in their pain. Leadership courage. What is courage? Well, it is the ability to step forward through faith. Courage doesn't mean the absence of doubt or fear, but the ability to act in spite of them. Courage means accepting responsibility. So when you accept responsibility, you make a real difference in the world. Because then you are willing to step up and take personal responsibility. Courageous leaders, in my opinion, will create opportunities to make a difference, whether it's in their organization or in their community. Then we have courage often means non-conformity. Leadership courage means going against the grain, breaking traditions, reducing boundaries, and initiating change. Leaders are willing to take risk for a larger ethical purpose, and they encourage others to do so. Courage also means pushing beyond the comfort zone. To take a chance and improve things means leaders have to push beyond their comfort zone. When people do so, they encourage an internal wall of fear. facing this wall of fear is when courage is needed the most. So I'm sure many of us can relate to going outside of your comfort zone. And for a lot of us, it may be challenging to do so. In my own personal experience, there have been times where, you know, you want to try something, but you're afraid because you're used to this particular thing. But it's good to try something else, you know, and that wall of fear you need that courage to, to break down that wall. Courage means fighting for what you believe, fighting for valued outcomes that benefit the whole. Leaders take risks, but they do so for a higher purpose, right? So leadership courage, you fight for what you believe in, and you do that because you know what you believe in obviously has to be the right thing. So how does courage apply to moral leadership? Well, there are many people working in organizations who have the courage to be unconventional. And when I say unconventional, I mean they have the courage to do something that is out of the ordinary. They believe in doing what is right. They believe that they believe in treating others with respect. Acting like a moral leader requires personal change. To practice moral leadership, leaders have to know themselves, understand their strengths and weaknesses, know what they stand for, and often be nonconformists. Honest self-analysis can be painful, and acknowledging one's limitations in order to recognize the superior abilities of others takes personal strength of character. So in addition, moral leadership means building relationships, sharing yourself, listening, having significant personal experiences, and making yourself vulnerable. All of these are qualities that may frighten many people. Yes, especially being vulnerable. That scares me, but if you want to be a moral leader, if you want to practice this skill, then you have to start by, doing things that may scare you. Opposing unethical conduct requires courage. This examines the term whistleblowing, which means employees' disclosure of illegal, immoral, or unethical practices in the organization. Most whistleblowers realize they may suffer financially and emotionally from their willingness to report unethical conduct on the part of bosses or coworkers, but they step forward to tell the truth despite a jumble of contradictory emotions and fears. Right? So an example of this term, whistleblowing, say for instance, an employee might be terminated for reporting a manager or a head of, your department or whatever the case may be, or even a regular employee, right? and let's say fraudulent reporting expenses or something like that. So this person conducted fraudulent reporting on a financial statement, and because of that, this employee gets terminated. Finding personal courage. How does a leader find the courage to step through fear and confusion to act despite the risk involved? Well, all of us have the potential to live and act courageously if we push through our own fears. Our fears often stand in the way of being our best self and accomplishing our goals. We can unlock the courage within ourselves by committing to causes we believe in, connecting with others, welcoming failure as a natural and beneficial part of life, and harnessing anger. So we can work on that, building that personal courage, right? And we can take it one day, one step at a time, commit to something we believe in. Connect and share yourself a little bit more with colleagues, people in the community, and learn to accept failure. Believe in a higher purpose. Courage comes easily when we fight for something we truly believe in. Leaders who have a strong emotional commitment to a larger vision or purpose find the courage to step through fear. In business organizations, courage, too, depends on belief of a higher vision. And according to Lawrence Fish, he said, if we just make money, we'll fail. And you all could visit the Daft textbook, page 185, if you all want to read a little bit more on Lawrence Fish. I will just give you all a brief bio on him, right? So he was the chairman / president of Citizens Bank, and he is known for his volunteer efforts, commitments to the community, and his unconventional approach and his unconventional approach to operating a bank efficiently with his heart to create a banking powerhouse, right? So he believes that it wasn't just about the money, right? He believes in building relationships, being a good leader, volunteering in his community and stuff like that. Draw strength from others. Caring about others and having support from others is a potent source of courage. Love is a strong ingredient of courage because it makes us willing to sacrifice. Love is a strong ingredient of courage because it makes us willing to sacrifice. When you love someone, or you love your neighbor, you love your colleague, right? You are willing to sacrifice, to give up something for that person, or to go out of your way for that person. An example of this, a caring parent who will risk his or her own life to save a child. Leaders who genuinely care about the people they work with will take risk to help those people grow and succeed. So, when you draw your strength from others, you have the support of other people. And this is a source of courage because the best leaders aren't afraid to lean on other people when they need to. Welcoming failure. Accepting or even welcoming failure enables courage. Failure can play a creative role in work and in life because people and organizations can learn valuable lessons from things that go wrong. Today, many people want success to come without difficulties, problems, or struggles. Leaders know that failure can lead to success and that the pain of learning strengthens individuals and the organization. So when people accept failure and are at peace with the worst possible outcome of a situation, they will find that they have the fortitude to move forward. And I'm sure many of you can relate to that. We don't always get it right the first time around. Sometimes, you fail, but when you actually succeed in the long run, you experience the pain, how that failure would have affected you. And in that way, you are a stronger person. Harness frustration and anger. People and organizations can harness their anger to deal with difficult situations. For example, when someone has to be fired for just cause, a supervisor may put it off until some incident makes him or her angry enough to step through fear and act. I have personally, I wouldn't say experienced this, but I saw it in my workplace happen. This literally happened already, where my supervisor actually, right, she got to a point where she terminated this person, but she only did it out of anger, right? So she waited and she waited and she waited until this particular employee slipped up, and she was angry enough to say, you know what, I'm going to do something about it now. Getting mad at yourself can be motivation to change. Anger in moderate amounts is a healthy emotion that provides energy to move forward. The challenge is to harness anger and use it appropriately, right? So I wouldn't say that I would say that my supervisor, she really did not use her anger appropriately, but it is what it is. Like, things happen all the time. So sometimes outrage over perceived injustice can give a mild-mannered person the courage to confront a situation head-on. So, you being quiet, little you, well-mannered, not really so much of an outspoken person, you're so upset or something, got you so upset that you're so angry about it that you decide to say, you know what, I'm going to say something now. When you just being your normal self would not have said anything before, but because you are, let's say something happened and you're so angry about it, you decide to say, you know what, I'm gonna act now, or I'm gonna do, or I'm gonna say something now, right? But you being mad at yourself can also be motivation to change. Okay, so that's it, folks. Short and sweet. And from what Malika and I have covered in chapter 6, courage and moral leadership, this is just a summary. So this chapter explored a number of ideas concerning moral leadership and leadership courage. People want honest and trustworthy leaders, and I'm sure all of us can attest to that. You know, you don't want to work amongst people who are dishonest. You want someone, you want a leader that you can trust, that you know you have that relationship with that person that is level headed and makes rational decisions. The ethical climate in most organizations are at a low point. Creating an ethical organization requires that leaders act based on moral principles. Leaders can cause things to go wrong in the organization if they excessively promote self-interest, practice deception, breach agreements, and lack the courage to confront unjust acts. We need these type of leaders. Like, I'm sure they exist, but like the third point said here, in most organizations, they are at a low point. So if these type of leaders actually exist, they are rare to find, like maybe just a handful. So what I would advise everyone who is able to view this presentation is to practice being an ethical leader. I mean, it is a leadership course. This is the reason for us being here, so that we can practice the things that we have learned in our time spent with Mr. Bisu in this class, right? And lastly, acting as a moral leader means demonstrating the importance of serving people and society, as well as increasing profits or personal gain. So being a leader is not just about, okay, being in this organization and I'm here just to make money. That's not the way, that's not the mindset. That is not what leadership is about. Yes, there is some aspect of it there, but to be a moral leader, we have to practice and demonstrate the importance of serving others, working with others, and the people in our community. So thank you so much for giving me your time, taking the time out to view this presentation. I hope that you all learned something from it. And yeah, have a good night, everyone. Be safe, and thank you again.
Okay, are there any questions that people want to ask that Malika might be able to respond to?
Good afternoon.
Mr. Sunbrice?
Yes. Well, during the presentation, this thought came to mind, so I'm throwing it out there for a response, maybe from the presenters or from yourself. We spoke about the 4 principles of servant leadership, and among them, if I'm summarizing it, it spoke to the role of well, she spoke about love, as she went on to courage as part of the servant leadership concept and principle, and sacrificing oneself and love allows you to put yourself on the line, for want of a better expression. But we also spoke about the ethics in terms of fighting for what you believe. Now, I have 2 things in mind that is, well, not confusing me, that I'm trying that is tuning. One, if I'm leading an organization, but because the organization has multiple people who have different ideas and concepts and different goals altogether, so they're operating on different platforms, and how then do I balance between the variety of goals, as opposed to my objective, my goal? How do I balance that? And secondly, how do I treat, or is the concept of self-care, because in leadership now and so on, you talk about self-care, is the concept of self-care at odds with the concept of servant leadership? So that's what's turning in my head. I don't know if we could get a response.
All right. Would anybody like to, Malika, would you like to respond?
I would have loved if my partner was here to help me respond to these both questions, but let me see how best I can help Gideon. Okay, so with respect to, you have an organization and everybody has different goals and whatnot. How do you go about, that was the question, right? How you go about dealing with those and yours?
Yeah, because they may be at variance with yours, but you're saying that the leadership is not about you. It's it's about empowering other people, but these other people have different objectives.
Wait, right. I guess it could probably have a balance. You have it about you. You have your set of goals, but you also, as a leader, you're putting it out to everybody else as well, and their goals basically just have to match up to yours because it's your organization. So we kind of trying to have a balance between everybody and yourself, instead of just trying to go about and you see about everybody and then you just there ain't seeing about yourself. You understand?
But I think the broader issue is that another chapter would have contributed to a solution to this problem, and that would have been working with groups and teams. And one of the issues that comes up when you're leading large organizations or large teams is that you need to be able to build consensus and get stakeholder buy-in. So it's not a matter of it being an opposing point of view, but it's part of the leadership practice to be able to build consensus among the people in your organization. And that is one of your jobs. As a leader, one of your jobs is to build consensus around the goals and objectives of the organization itself. Now, if you have your own personal organization where you've designed or set up your own goals and objectives, then you have to make sure that you sell those ideas to the group of individuals to whom you're pulling together to try and achieve those objectives. If that's the case, then you don't have a good fit with the people that you have there, and you'd have to build that consensus utilizing various techniques. So being a servant leader is not in congruence or in competition with developing consensus. It actually works better if you can build consensus through understanding and appreciating people from a servant perspective and empowering them to get the job done, which is get what your organization wants to get done by giving them the necessary tools, skills, and encouragement and motivation to be able to get that accomplished. I'm hoping, Gideon, that that kind of approaches your, because it's not really a paradox. The paradox comes up when you have unethical competing elements that may come into the midst. Once the issues are, once differences might be of an ethical basis, then you have to start to look at, okay, what's right or wrong and what's good and bad. But if the differences are based upon methods and approaches, then I don't think you're going to have too much of an issue. The other issue you brought up about putting me in front. Well, if you think about it, if you're a servant leader, the same treatment you'd want for yourself, you would also want for those around you. And that means that you can't treat yourself well and others poorly. And similarly, you can't treat yourself poorly and expect others to put up with it. So there's that dichotomy there that you're gonna have to face. Gideon, does that help?
Yes, it helps. It puts more food in the consideration in the pot.
Okay.
So thanks. Yeah.
No problem. All right, Malika. So if there are no other questions, I'd like to pause this recording because we have 2 more presentations due tonight. Okay. Thank you very much. Job well done.
Okay, thank you everybody for taking time again to listen to our presentation. I hope everybody has a wonderful night. I have to leave, so good night, everybody.
All right. Night.